Hey, welcome back to the big board. Oops, let's fix this camera. Get to see the face. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. But here we are. I wanted to catch up on a video chat that I missed last Saturday. Actually, I was driving back from New Mexico, and I was meant to be on a chat with Hexy on his channel. Todd was there, Wardrobe, and Andy was there, and a chapter who I don't think I know, Ross. I think it was Ross. Or was it Russ? I think it was Ross. And obviously Jeff. And so the conversation was around, I dropped a counter. Stand by. Hello. All right. The conversation was about World War II games. How would you approach introducing a World War II game to somebody if they asked about it? Number one. Number two, I think second question was, what game would you pick from the 70s for World War II to introduce people to wargaming? And then the third one was, looking at levels of complexity, and as you move through there, what titles would you use to introduce someone into a more complex tactical level, medium complexity, and very complex, and then I think crunchy was the word that was used. And then the fourth question, I think I jotted it down here, was suggestions of games in different categories that you would play. And then the fifth bonus question was, you're on an island, what game system would you pick, given it would be your only system to play? So I'm going to make some observations on some of their suggestions, and then I'm also going to try and answer the questions as best I can, just so we can I can kind of chip in. I'm sad I missed it. I was as I said, driving back. I was 11 hours into it. I did actually get back close enough to being on time, but hadn't had a shower, hadn't really eaten because I had a super upset stomach, so I was super fatigued. And I was in bed about an hour after I got home anyway, and slept right through until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Then I was awake just because I was awake. It's been happening on and off lately. Now, so first things first, there were some great suggestions about getting people into into World War II war games. And, the war game that's not a war game, Undaunted, the ahistorical tile placement, card placement game that has rich narrative, right? That's what it has. I got one of the stupid spam texts. Apparently, Olivia is asking me if I missed her, and I said wrong number, and she said, "Oh, isn't this Annie?" God, I hate those things. Anyway, where was I? Undaunted. Yeah, so we can set that aside. If someone has enough interest in history and in military history, and they're asking you probably because they've seen that you play war games, and assuming that you're not a complete dumbass, you can probably teach them a relatively basic war game without having to resort to something that's not what I would call a Euro. It's a card management Euro non-war game, right? It may be rich and thematic, and I don't see how it's going to keep your interest for about 4.5 minutes, and you're going to move on. It's kind of like, to me, Warfighter, where that whole Warfighter series, you get a big old deck of cards, and you flip through them, you give your guy a grenade and a gun, and hopefully you take a bazooka with you, and then, look, you're four tiles or hexes away from the objective, and you find an ammo cache just in time because you're advancing into the enemy area for the first time and you have an ammo cache there. So also massively ahistorical, but a great beer and pretzels, laugh at dumb shit that people do, fun game. Not completely poo-pooing it, but if I'm going to hang out with a bunch of guys for a couple of hours, it's not the game I'm going to play with you, unless you just really, really want to play it. I played a 4-player game of that one time, and there was a lot of eye rolling going around for weeks afterwards about what the fuck did we just waste our time on. Anyway, because within 3 or 4 hours, we could have played any number of war games that were modest and light. So What do I think is a great introductory war game? And unfortunately, it's not World War II, but Strike Force, the original little Strike Force game that has, I think, 2 or 3 counters each. Boom, you can play it, and you will understand units, hexes, zones of control, and combat. How do you move? How do you fight? How do you kill the bad guys? And that's the fundamentals of pretty much every war game, right? So if you can get those things down and be comfortable with those concepts, then you could graduate to Battle for Moscow. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, well, Battle for Moscow, the original version and the rebooted one, which I think now is kind of bloated up to 8 or 9 pages of rules." You could use that as an introductory game. There's not a lot of pieces, so that's a good thing. But there's a lot of stuff to read. And if you're going to teach it, I think that's one thing. But if you're going to give someone the rules and say, "Hey, read this, then come and play, and I'll guide you," I'm not so sure that I want to do that. I would rather take the 12 pages, I think it's 12, 10 or 12 pages of rules from SCS and take, I'm not a huge fan. Well, let's leave designers out of it. I would take Rostov 41, and I would use that as a game to expose people to some tactical things that are super interesting. And if they're going to like that, if they like what they do, what they see, movement to contact, maneuver, getting the right odds on the bad guys, reacting to the bad guys, trying to obtain victory conditions and locations and stuff like that, and get a sense of history out of it all, I think Rostov 41, once it all got cleaned up and fixed, was a very, very good game. And I think it's a good game for beginners. And I would suggest, generally speaking, that most of the SCS titles, other than Stalingrad Pocket 2, are well capable of being really good introductory games. Just because there's the low rules overhead. Panzer Battles is another one that a little tricky to work out how to play each side, and you kind of need to have a little bit more gaming experience to work out how to play it, but it gives you lots of replay value. I also think, and this might be a stretch for some folks, but if you actually go and look at Compass Games, why do I always keep forgetting this guy's name? I can see the box. I don't have my glasses on. I can't read the designer's name. Kharkov Battles. Fantastic. That's a fantastic entry-level game. I really think it is. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of stuff going on, but you could play a smaller scenario, get after it. Battles in the East, Uwe's design. That is another great system that you could try. You notice there's a lot of East Front stuff there, right? So on the Western Front, we start to struggle with introductory games, and I would then use that as a segue to go into what are some of the original 70s and 80s games that you might be able to play that you would use as introductory games. And for me, second war game I ever owned, I believe, was Avalon Hill's D-Day. It was either that or Blitzkrieg. It was probably D-Day. And I taught my son, one of my middle guy, who I'm going to go have lunch with in a little bit, taught him to play D-Day. He loved it. I let him have fun and win. And he actually worked some shit out. It was good. That is and was an excellent game for introductory level stuff. Not good for history at all. Horrible counters, horrible map. It's just all that old 70s, 1 or 2 colors, and thanks for playing, and really did not look pretty. And certainly not historically accurate either. So there was that, and then I just thought of another game, and it slipped out of my mind. It'll come back to me. And I guess, we're not really even touching on solo games. And I would think Vento Nuovo's Stalingrad is a great introductory game. All of their block games, that Moscow 41s, Leningrad 41, Smolensk 41, something. That series of block games, they're gorgeous. They play really well. They're block area movement games. But you've got to have tactics, and you've got to have some strategy, and you've got to be thinking about how you're going to play your hand of how, not your hand, how you're going to play the level of activations, number of activations that you have. I think that they would be good games, but that they're not 70s. I had another 70s game that I was thinking of that. AGS, the Army Group South Quad, and in fact, Panzer Group Guderian would be another good one. The precursor to the VCS system. I think those would be pretty fascinating titles for folks to attempt to get their heads around, right? And I think they would be entertaining and enjoyable, historically interesting. You also have, of course, Avalon Hill's Bulge series that Bruno designed and ended up becoming Bitter Woods. I think Bitter Woods would be a little bit more intermediate, but the Bulge. Do I have that up there somewhere? I do. I have a copy that someone gave me, a friend who's not a wargamer. Yeah, Battle of the Bulge. I don't know what edition it is. It's right in the middle of the set series, red box, snowy stuff on the side. Anyway, some anniversary edition. I don't know what year it is. 77, 80 something. Once again, no glasses, can't read. And then some of the early SPI games, for all that they were potentially horrible games to play, and in terms of history and all the rest of it, you've got John Hill and Simonson and other folks designing and doing artwork and really punching out a lot of good content on occasion. And I think you could pick up any of those, pick a topics. One of the great things about SPI is you could grab an SPI game from the 80s and ask someone, what are you interested in? Flick through your set of magazine games and go, okay, well, let's do the Yom Kippur War, let's do World War II in Buttfuckistan. So you could do that because they had everything. All right, so that was the first two. Bada boom, bada bing. Introductory. From an introductory thing, I think the questions I'd ask is not just what area are you interested in or what scale you're interested in. I'd be asking them, what's your favorite war movie? Have you ever watched a World War II movie? What do you like? What don't you like? What gets you excited about it? Do you like the big picture? Do you like to see the little tactical guys running around doing things and going pew, pew, pew? Have you read books? Do you read books? Do you care about books? Do you care about military history? You do? Great. Well, let's talk about that. And what do you like about those books, right? I get fascinated by the big picture, with the maps and what's going on and movement and all that sort of stuff. But what I really like, the more I think about it as I've gone through my years of reading, I love the little vignettes that are in there about what, Hans and Franz did, or Ivan did, or Billy Bob did in this small action. So I think the book Company Commander is a great example of that. It's got a lot of examples, and Time for Trumpets and all the rest of it. Anyway, so I think that kind of puts a wrapper around those two questions that they had. And let's then look at so we'll come back to this. I'm going to cross my fingers here, and hopefully we'll come back to it. Levels of depth. Entry level stuff. I think I've mentioned. I would. Someone had mentioned Combat Commander as a great entry level game. And there are, and they also said, there's these guys that win the tournaments all the time and all that sort of stuff. And well, look, it's because I don't think there's a lot of strategy to that game. It's a hand management game. You're not limited by the hand you have, actually, Todd. You're not. You can dump your hand as many times as you want, whether it's 2 cards, your whole deck, whole hand, whatever the case might be. So it's that game winds down to being about, can you dump your cards faster than the other guy to get the cards that you need to do whatever it is you need to do in the immediate short term, in the meanwhile potentially holding some cards that will serve you well in the future. And that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why I do not like Combat Commander. I've played a bunch of it, still own it all, got it all boxed up and put away in the bottom of the closet in the storage closet. I'd love to play it against somebody sometime that's not a card counter, because then it becomes more interesting. But as soon as you start counting cards and dumping cards, then the whole thing just falls apart for me. That's kind of sad. And there's a lot of love for the system. I think because the designer is now deceased, and so there's this emotional empathy around it all. And if we're just looking at it, straight mechanics, straight, that's it. That's the biggest flaw with the thing, because it's a card-driven game and it's a hand dumper game. Counters are nice, maps are nice, rules are very, very clear and concise. Great rule book, some pretty good scenarios, but they're not super historical by any means. Anyway, so there's that in terms of tactical. So tactical for me at the lowest level, tactical or even skirmish. Skirmish, I would absolutely go. Well, it's a solo game. I'd go with combat. But skirmish level opposed, I like the old SBI patrol and is it search and destroy or hunt and kill or something like that? Search and destroy from SBI. Raid is another great game that's down at that sort of skirmish level, 2-man teams and fire teams and stuff like that. And that would be relatively simple. You could expand that out and go more complex, like super complex at the fire team level, and you play City Fight from SBI. Amazing opposed game. You really need an umpire, but ideally you could, two honest people could play that game and have a lot of fun. Love that game. But setting all those aside, current offerings, my heart in World War II goes to OST, the old school tactical, Last 100 Yards, and Lock and Load tactical. I don't play as much of the Lock and Load tactical World War II stuff as I used to, but I'm not as big a fan of the Eastern Front there. The scenarios have not been as exciting. I really like all the Normandy-based Western Front modules. I think they've all been done extremely well. Really, 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 really good. Love those, and I love Last 100 Yards. And I'm not just saying that because I'm getting into a series of gameplays there, but I'm reacquainting myself with the system and very much appreciating it. Old school tactical, just gorgeous componentry, beautiful to look at. I like the dual action activations for units. I like the risk that comes from having to roll up your number of activations for every turn. Makes you make hard choices about survivability versus objective acquisition, stuff like that. OST has really become a go-to game system for me for World War II, both East Front and Western Europe, and now of course they've got the Canadian module there somewhere for the Empire and Pacific, Hellbent. I've got all those as well, and all the little expansions. I think I've got all of it. I'm not sure. Anyway, so that's a tactical. Now, operationally, there's so many in World War II that you could get excited about. Obviously, BCS stands out from MMP. I think OCS stands out. It's not for the lighthearted, but you've got Proud Monster Deluxe. You've got some of the SCS games you could call operational. Simonich's titles, Ukraine 43 and the Bulge game and Normandy 44 and that whole Zokbon system. That now, all the Sicily modules, particularly the Sicily modules, the very first one. Where is that? I can't see it. Can I see it? He said North Africa. No, well, North Africa 41 is really good. It's behind the door frame on my bookcase. I can't see it. Anyway, I think it's the Salerno landings. Salerno 43 has the best, most concise rulebook of the series, and I would encourage that as an intermediate kind of operational scale game if you wanted to learn. I think that would be fabulous. Other systems that I think that are good intermediate operational scale games. You've got Liberty Roads. You've got some of the older SBI games like Buck Dum Rhine. I mean, well, that's not intermediate actually. That's advanced. Sorry. There was a long discussion about GOS and other systems. We'll get to some of that in a minute potentially. So intermediate and operational. Tactical at platoon scale and complex, I would probably say TCS is just fabulous system. If you're interested in platoon scale efforts, that's really cool. You should play one of them. I'd start with Ariete in the African front as the first one. Lots of tanks, it's always good. And then, another game that's actually great at company scale on the Eastern Front is Red Winter, company scale. Unfortunately, that guy never continued that series really, and kind of lost the plot with the Canadian whatever he was doing with some operation. Completely changed the game. The Red Winter game works awesome. It's perfect. Great game. Played that 5, 6, 7 times opposed. Very good game. I'm still waiting on the updated expansion for it, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. All right. What else? So, strategic. Now, strategic is where I kind of let myself down. Yeah, unconditional surrender. I didn't mind it. A little bit of a push me, pull you game when it comes to combat. Because, it's hard to wipe out an army in one shot. I get it. Supreme Commander, I liked it probably because I won in 43 as the Allies or something. I did something goofy and the rules let you do it. But I like that geopolitical stuff too. I have an interest in it, but I don't like all this BRP, base resource point nonsense, and I got to do a bunch of math and accounting and all that stuff, and with spirals like War in the East and all that. Not interested in that, but there's some decent games out there. I'm not your Huckleberry to pick ones that are best or great, so apologies for that. A system that I don't think anyone mentioned that could be a potential introductory game number one, and then a future advanced game at the tactical level is Panzer. Panzer is it reminds me a lot of Panzer Blitz, which is one of the early games I cut my teeth on in wargaming. I think Panzer could be a great introductory game because the very basic game, super simple. You move, you shoot, you kill bad guys. If you roll this number, he brews up or dies. If you don't, then you missed, or you might put a hurt on him. I really like that game a lot. Having said that, I'm probably moving on from Panzer at the moment, and seriously considering letting that series go. I'm going to keep the MBT stuff. We'll see. It's all TBD at the moment. All right, this is getting long, so let me try and wrap things up. We'll get to these suggestions and levels of depth. I think I covered on that, right? I did want to mention, interestingly, they were talking about when they first got into war games and all that sort of good stuff. One of the things that I found that I ended up doing, my mom worked in a restaurant and was restaurant manager, or manageress back then. You were allowed to call them that. So I sat in the back booth after school. I would go to work with her, and I would sit in this back booth, a long table about 6 feet long, and I had all these little revolutionary red and blue guys, and they had these big red candles that would go on the table. So it was an American pancake parlor of all things. So you'd have steak on buckwheat pancakes and grilled ham and pineapple on pancakes and pancakes. And then had sweet dessert pancakes and stuff as well. I ended up working in the kitchen a bunch of the time as well as a like a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, all highly illegal. But anyway, candles, I'd let those candles burn and accumulate the wax, and I'd snap the wax off, and that would be the logs for each side to be covered, and I'd have the soldiers and the general on his horse and a couple of cannons, and that's where I really started wargaming, right? I had my little toy soldiers, and I had some World War II ones, the shit that comes in a bag, right, for $1.99 out of the back of the old Look and Learn magazine, and some other magazine I used to get all the time. And I look at all the battles and all the maneuvers and things, and I reimagine them with my little dinky 2-foot wide table by 6-foot long table. I had that table to myself most of the time. Okay, anyway, so that and Waterloo and D-Day and then Panzerblitz and then SPI games was my genesis of gaming, I guess. So, suggestions. I've kind of been doing suggestions anyway, and if I had to pick one, so let's just skip all that nonsense. Did anyone say anything else interesting in there that I thought? Oh, yeah, someone made a comment, I think it might have been Ross, commenting on ASL and how, they had these great games. He played against a lot of great guys and played these great games, and it always came down to the last die roll and stuff like that. And I think that is fun. It makes things tense, for sure. But when I look at how the military fights, we don't want a close battle, right? We don't want a fair fight. We want to smash the other guy and have them quit halfway through. Now, if we can do that good-naturedly and have fun and then swap sides and see if it was just their awesome gameplay that demolished me, or vice versa, that's cool. But what I'm getting at is that tactically, games should allow us to get, and I know that we balance scenarios and all this sort of stuff, but I strive to drive the enemy to lose or lose the will to fight. That's kind of how I play the games. When I play opposed, generally, and I find it interesting that people say, "Oh, well, this is a great game system because it always comes down to the last die roll," and to me, that feels a little tedious, but it is exciting. I will give you that. Oh yeah, that bazooka shot made it. Thank goodness for that. Well, maybe you have bad tactics to start with. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was just an interesting observation from the crew. Todd had mentioned that GTS was probably one of his go-to systems, and obviously ASL was one of the big ones for, take it to the island, and GTS for Todd. I'm still struggling with GTS. I kind of don't get it. Probably need to play with Todd, don't I? If you're listening, Todd, that would be cool. Goss was mentioned and discarded, and I can see why. I keep coming back to it, trying it, and I keep walking away. We could say the same thing about the Grognard simulations with the Death Ride and the Armored Knights system, which is still a bit of a mess, and that's sad. But World War II wise, system wise, I haven't really mentioned OCS. I still think OCS is fantastic. Although I must admit, the last couple of modules that have come out, there's really very little progress on the map. Very World War I-esque type situations, and I think that's just a function of the resilient nature of the German defense and its flexibility, and the hammer pounding nature of the Russians being able to swarm an area, but then they can't do anything anywhere else to lock down QRF forces and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes this, I'm going to pound here, I'm going to support, I'm going to pound here, I'm going to support. Whereas I think the earlier modules really lent themselves to the more, cut and thrust, open maneuver warfare that is so fascinating to me. But I'm enamored with the current crop of games, because I believe it's going to give us a ability to play any period across a consistent set of maps and scales and time scales, and hopefully we'll have some orders of battle that will make some sense, and we'll be able to work it all out, right? It'll be pretty cool. I see where they're going with the big picture, and I'm hopeful for that. So anyway, and I think I mentioned BCS. I'm a fan of BCS. I think it's got lots and lots of potential. It's a fascinating game system, and I need to play more of it. It's on the list to get to early in 26. We'll see what happens. There's that, and I think that might wrap it up. I'm looking at the wall here of games to see if I've missed any striking systems that need to be discussed. I didn't really discuss VCS. That kind of comes into the intermediate to advanced game systems. I'm looking at Iron Tide, Panzers in the Ardennes, doggone it, the new Market Garden version that's coming out. There's some other stuff coming that I think will be awesome. Then also, the Last Gamble from Compass Games. I think that needs to be handed in at the intermediate to advanced, depending on what rules and optional rules you want to play. Lots of replay if you like the Bulge. That's got to be your go-to game for Bulge. East Front, there's all sorts of reboots that have been done, like The Last Stand, and you've got Army Group Center from, is it GDW? I don't think it's GDW. That's actually a good little system. Edelweiss from Clash of Arms. There are a lot of great systems out there that we need to be thoughtful about in terms of giving them a place in the pantheon of games that we would want to keep and play and all that sort of fun stuff. All right, look, and we haven't even touched really on the Pacific War at all, and I would count the Pacific War from Mark Herman as the ultimate World War II Pacific game, with Empire of the Sun coming in second if you wanted to play the sort of grand strategy game and have a manageable and acceptable CDG that doesn't rub you entirely the wrong way. It can rub you the wrong way, but it's manageable. And then for the Pacific, I really think that TCS does a fantastic job with its handful of modules, Montana Cow and Bloody Ridge and a couple others there that I think are pretty awesome too. All right, I'm losing my voice, which means I've talked too much, and it's 32 minutes in, and you're probably wondering, what the F am I doing? I am going to continue to not set up Battle for Normandy. That's why I made the video. I'm going to go get a drink of water and maybe a cup of coffee and try and get after it and get this thing finished. I thought I was going to get it done all last night. I barely scratched the surface. I'm going to do a second video because I need to show you how this was stored the last time. I don't believe this is me because I'm looking at the clipping and it's not my clipping. I must have sold my original module and then bought this one because I was fearful that I felt like I wanted to play it or something. I don't know what the freaking hell I was thinking. But the organization on this bad boy, it's really annoying me. We'll talk about that soon. Ciao. Roll dice.